Hello, everybody, and welcome to TheNonProphets. This show is brought to you by the Atheist Community of Austin. I'm your host, Russell Glasser. Jeff D. is out today, and filling in are my guests, Martin Wagner and Denis Loubet.
Hi.
Hello. Hello. Today's opening music was Sex in the Church by David Bowie, from the album The Buddha of Suburbia, brought in by Martin. We are live January 17th, 2004. The Atheist Community of Austin is a non-profit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings Sunday mornings at Hot Jumbo Bagel Shop, 307 West 5th Street at 10:30 a.m., except for the first Sunday of each month when we have our lecture series at 12 p.m. in the Mayor's Room of the Austin History Center. The Bagel Shop will be open tomorrow. Or are we having our lecture?
No, it's tomorrow is lecture series.
Oh, well, I am stupid.
No, you made the same mistake I've done every Sunday.
Right. And
the year began.
And I just remembered I've made another mistake, which was that on the previous show, Jeff said, my New Year's resolution is not to read regular announcements anymore.
Well, but that was what Jeff said.
Yeah, well, I made no such resolution.
So
continuing.
Yeah, you're safe.
ACA board meetings take place at 10 o'clock right before our regular meeting on the second Sunday of every month. These meetings are open to all ACA members, but you can only vote if you're on the board of directors. Those of you who shop at Randall's can give them our nonprofit organization number 5158 and have 1% of your purchase donated to the Atheist Community of Austin. The Godless Gamers meet every Monday night at 7 o'clock p.m. here at my house.
Everything happens here at your house.
Not everything. Actually, I forgot to mention that the monthly potluck will be taking place at Michelle's house.
Yes.
If you didn't know that, then get in touch with Michelle or me if you don't know how to get in touch with Michelle.
Oh, all right.
Of course, normally the potluck actually does happen here, but my wife is gone, and I don't know how to handle crowds.
Yeah. But this is still, when it comes right down to it, the official party house of the ACA.
True.
Yes.
Godless Gamers, still meeting here.
Uh-huh.
ACA Happy Hour takes place at Antonio's near Highway 35 and 183 every Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. If you get there early and don't see anyone else, hang around. Lots of people trickle in as the night goes on. For more information, you can call our voicemail at 512-371-2911 or visit our website at www.atheist-community.org. If you are listening live right now, then you should have already gone to www.atheistnetwork.com, but in case you didn't notice, there is also a chat link where you can sort of participate in the show, although being the regular designated chatter and also being the designated host when Jeff is gone, those duties tend to interfere with each other. Yeah. But we might check out the chat room during the show. And
yeah, every once in a while, like if Dennis and I are talking about something, Russell might take a peek in there and see if...
Right.
But by all means,
plus, there are so many other incredibly cool regular listeners who make the chat room an entertaining place.
Yeah. Wasn't it along the last show? In fact, I think this is the first time I've done 2 episodes of Non-Profits back-to-back.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. And last one, weren't there like 50 people?
Oh.
Something?
No, 50 people listening.
Okay, yeah. But still a lot of people in the chat room, too.
Yeah, but our listenership is growing by leaps and bounds, and we're happy about that.
So.
Yeah, Jeff played that episode for me. Quite good.
Welcome to all of our chatters, and if you're not chatting yet, get in there, damn it, and chat with each other. Because you do save not only the MP3s of the past episodes, but
don't save the chat room.
You don't do that anymore?
This chat room does not support that.
Oh, that's right. It's a JavaScript thing. It's not the old ICQ.
Yeah, of course, go bug Reggie about getting a chat room installed that actually allows you to copy and paste. That would be nice.
Something that has a log.
Well, I mean, if this one is easier on his bandwidth, though, maybe, who knows?
Yeah, right.
You've got to worry about that.
Yes,
Reggie's awesome.
Don't criticize your service provider.
No, but I mean, he's
no, I love Reggie.
Yeah, he's doing his awesome regardless. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
If somebody could just highlight everything and click copy and paste it into a Word document if you want.
No, I used to do that. You can't even highlight on anything.
Oh, you can't even do that. gasp.
Yeah, so you would have to, type it in by hand. That would be a way to save
We demand that somebody upgrade the code.
Yes,
while during and
right, yes.
make it available as open source.
Or any of you out there who happen to be a stenographer.
Yeah, by the end of the show.
Okay. Well, anyway, enough of that banter.
Enough of that carefully rehearsed ad-libbing.
So, should we do a news story first, or should we jump right into razzing on Ashley?
Oh, we're not going to...
No.
Oh, no. We won't razz on Ashley, but we do have some comments to make. We should probably preface it, though.
Yes.
Because a lot of people listening from out of Austin... I am ordinarily the host of the Atheist Experience, which is the sister show to TheNonProphets, which is the Atheist Community of Austin's weekly live television show that plays here on cable access in Austin, Texas. And if you want to know a little bit more about that show as well as NonProphets, those of you who have been contacting Ashley Perrion, who's my co-host on the TV show, because he makes CD archives.
That would be atheist@mac.com.
That's right.
Write to him for archives of the show if I didn't mention that.
And both shows on CD, although I understand now that with the new year he's going to go to a quarterly format and they're going to be on DVD-ROMs.
Right.
And it'll be but we're also working on actually archiving the show itself as, both sound and vision on DVD. Because what Ashley offers is just the audio tracks.
Right.
But anyway, we are the atheist TV show on cable here in Austin, Texas. And one of the few shows of its type in America. I think there's one in Hawaii. There's another one that started up, I think, in Florida that someone had mentioned.
I was surprised because, people from other groups are always writing to us saying, how could we do something like that?
Right. I think that we have inspired a couple of folks to try to do shows like the Atheist Experience. But of course...
Get enough determined people.
There are scads of Christian cable access shows. This is
there's a few of them.
Yeah. Well, there's
that I've noticed.
Yeah. Well, there's an entire channel here. There are 3 cable access channels here in town that are just public access.
Right.
And one of those 3 is entirely devoted to religious programming. They just put them all there.
It's like 24 hours.
Yeah. And that is, and that's on top of the, if you get digital Time Warner cable, the 5 other 24-hour-a-day Christian channels. So there's at least half a dozen 24-hour-a-day channels.
Right. And yet people call up to the one atheist show in the country and say, why do you guys have a show? What do you want to talk about?
Strange, funny thing, isn't it? Yeah. But anyway...
we're so persecuted.
One of these Christian television shows sent us an email that I didn't get. I've only recently found out that for some damn reason Yahoo is putting all of my shows to the TV viewer feedback address in my bulk mail folder. Which means I now have to look in the damn bulk mail folder every day.
Oh, and you fixed that?
I tried to. I'm not quite sure how, because what it's not that it's coming from a particular sender. I think it has to do somehow with how it's being forwarded. But anyway,
take it to customer support, you two.
So that's why I didn't get that email originally from the hosts of this Christian television talk show who were invited us to appear because they were going to do a show on atheism. But Ashley did get it, and he went ahead and accepted the invitation. And although I will compliment him on presenting...
Ashley has been on this show before. You guys have heard him. I think he's still in one of the recent archive shows.
Yeah, maybe from 2 shows ago or something.
Yes, and he's a heck of a nice guy, yes.
Heck of a nice guy, which can sometimes mean I think Christians take advantage of that when they're debating him. As, in fact, we kind of saw that today, didn't we, on television? But... Anyway, I will praise Ashley for presenting what I thought was an image of positive atheism. Right, he came on and he was cheerful and friendly, and but unfortunately that kind of had its downside too. And so maybe later on we'll talk a bit about not so much to criticize Ashley, but it's very instructive when
how Christian shows work when they're talking to atheists,
or just things that atheists should be aware of if you are ever invited by a Christian to debate him. In either a format that he controls,
in any format,
or
extremely dangerous.
Well, it's not that it's extremely dangerous. It's just that you just got to be aware of how they. There's an article in the most recent Skeptical Inquirer all about why skeptics hate debating believers.
Right.
Not just about religion, but if you're a Bigfoot person or a rub crystals to be healthy person. It's. The reason skeptics are so frustrated at debating those folks is just the way in which they'll pretend to be big fans of logical methods of reasoning, but they'll just
abandon it.
Well, but they'll just throw everything out there in the winds, and they'll pile rhetoric on high in order to make it seem as if they've all got really nicely
reasoned out.
Yeah, well, in this particular show, this guy, it was an hour-long show. Supposedly they were going to take callers, but they didn't.
Never did.
This guy spent an inordinate amount of time rambling on and on about logic.
Yes.
Which is one of my pet peeves, frankly. I hate when people talk about how they think, because that is so pretentious. If you want me to see how you think, then present some arguments and let me discuss them.
State your position.
This kind of meta discussion, like, not that he did this, but like people who say, "Oh, I have a degree from so and so," or I studied logical thinking for many years.
Yeah, talk about
the sound like such a moron.
Discussing the mechanics and the methods of logic and reason instead of just mounting an argument that employs those things and trying to see if the entire point you're trying to make is in fact sound. But but it wasn't so much the pretentiousness of it all that got to me. It was that prior to actually appearing on the show, I sent him a lengthy email. Hang on, folks, I sneeze and it went away. Good. I sent him a lengthy email, sort of cautioning him. All right, based upon my experience, these are the main things I would look out for that they're going to try to pull. And they pulled the number one thing, which was shifting the burden of proof, which is a common onus that that believers will try to put on atheists. Shifting the burden of proof away from the
Can you prove there is no God?
Yeah. But they did it in a different way that I hadn't seen before, and it was interesting. And that what the host of this show did, was that in spending so much time, he talked first off. He went on this long-winded, rambling, and kind of irrelevant and self-contradictory way of discussing biblical passages that talk about evidence, and then going back to, if you read the original Greek, or if you read the original Aramaic, and then playing musical translations to see which one you like the best.
Yeah.
Right? So there was that, and then there was that lengthy bit at the end of the show where he spent 20 minutes going on and on about logic and the rules of logic.
Yes, he was obviously an Ayn Rand fan. He was going, A is A, and non-contradiction says that A cannot be not A. And so shut up.
The way he shifted the burden of proof was not through the usual way that I'm used to seeing Christians do it, but by saying, you can't prove there isn't a God, so unless you know everything, right? The usual. What he did was he changed the focus of the discussion to focusing on, first off, definitions of terms, with the whole evidence in the biblical term and the Greek versus the Aramaic versus the King James. There was definitions of terms and the rules of logic, and he tried to make those the central issue instead of what the central issue really should have been, which is, is there a fucking God?
Right.
And can you prove that there's a God? Instead, what he tried to do was he went on this whole rambling thing about logic, and then once he had gotten to where he was kind of satisfied with, he concluded, I don't see how, the atheist can, without the rules, look at the rules of logic and not say that there's an absolute lawgiver. So since you can't say that, then I conclude that there must be
any laws of logic without a lawgiver.
There couldn't be any laws of logic without an absolute lawgiver, which is, nonsense, right? I mean, there's the one thing does not imply the other. And so since you haven't, been able to formulate, to demonstrate how the laws of logic can work without an absolute lawgiver, I will thus conclude that there must be an absolute lawgiver, and I win. And that's how we did it. That's how we shifted the burden of proof.
The thing I notice about a lot of Christian apologetics is that they're centered around the idea that you can prove things in a vacuum. That you can apply logic to nothing in particular, create tautologies, and prove that there is a God without referencing any actual evidence in the real world.
Yeah.
That's what William Dembski's all about, right? He's a pure math guy. Yeah. He doesn't refer to any positive evidence for anything. He just, pulls out these long equations with lots of Greek letters in them, and says, therefore there is a God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
logic exercises for the sake of logic exercises.
Right.
Which is how you can prove that George Washington was a cat.
Yeah, and that mention of lawgivers, he waited till the last 10 seconds to bring that up, so there could be no rebuttal.
Yeah.
It was like,
yeah, and that's another thing.
Wow.
And the reason some of us were expressing some frustration with Ashley is that what it was clear to us, the guys were doing, the hosts of the show were doing, I guess because we were, the spectators.
Right.
Yeah, we could look at it objectively.
Well, they spent the first...
we were ranting and raving about what they were doing.
Right.
They spent the first half of the show, right? Everybody, they were just all being matey and chummy and pally, right?
Yeah,
and they were, and it just was, and I'm just like, Ashley, they're softening you up, bud.
Right.
They softened them up.
Yeah, they said,
and
here's some arguments that Christians make that we think are really stupid.
Yeah, they went
Pascal's wager.
It's like, we're going to hand the atheist these things and say, all right, we'll concede that when Christians say this, it's dumb. And we'll concede that when Christians say that, it's dumb. So we'll hand you a few things.
And then
how understanding we are.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, one of the ones they introduced was that Christians supposedly say all the time was, that's just the way it is. And we were all like, what?
Yeah, I've never really heard that.
That was out of nowhere. But you see, it was a setup for the end.
One could bring it up.
Yeah. Well, it was, but in the end what they did was they put this argument in Ashley's mouth and then refuted it.
Right.
Yeah, they basically said, since you've been saying that you use logic, to justify atheism, it's like, Ashley said no such thing at any point in the show.
Right. They said, you've been talking about logic this whole hour is what they said.
No, he was talking about logic for the whole show. He was the guy talking about logic for 20 minutes.
Yes.
Not Ashley. And Joe Maker, Ashley didn't jump in and say, what are you talking about? I wasn't saying that.
There was no time.
No, I disagree with that. That's bullshit. You can always jump in and say, did you ever see that Robert Redford movie, The Candidate?
No.
Okay, there's this great scene in The Candidate where he pisses off, like, The Candidate is this movie, it is a Robert Redford movie, early 70s, right, which was a great time of political cynicism in America, where he is, he's manufactured by these, this team.
Right.
To basically just be a guy that they're going to run for the Senate for the hell of it, because they know he can't win because the incumbent has this great record and he's got it in the bag. So, for the hell of it, they're just going to run him as a 100% honest candidate. Because they can afford to. Because he's not going to, because, the idea, they don't think he has a chance of running anyway. So what he does is, there's one scene where he pisses everyone off, including this, shoo-in opponent of his, because they're doing a television debate, and in like the last 10 seconds of the debate, Redford starts going, well, I want to know about, what we're going to do to help the homeless. What are we going to do about unemployment? That's what I want to talk about. It's like, last 10 seconds of the debate. Okay? I don't buy the thing that there's never any time. You can always, get it in if you need to get it in, especially if you're being misrepresented. That's just defending yourself. Yeah. So, but I also warned Ashley that another thing that they would probably try to do would just do the whole thing of, just rambling on and not let him get a word in edgewise.
And they did that in spades.
Hopefully Ashley will include this show with the latest CD so that people who at least listen to the CDs can catch up if they missed this show.
You mean
and can come to their own conclusion.
You mean
the one we just watched,
the Christian TV show?
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if he'd have to get their permission for that.
I don't know.
We'll see. Because it is their show, and he does sell the CDs. So
true.
But he could talk to them about that. I mean, because they're obviously all matey with each other. So.
Oh yeah.
They're all buddies.
Again, I was proud of Ashley for presenting a nice image of an atheist to a Christian TV audience. He didn't come off the curmudgeon, the angry.
Yeah, he wasn't mean, and he wasn't all depressed, which is what they implied that atheists were at the beginning of the show.
Yeah,
courage in appearing.
And it was very spunky of him to do it, but he let him get away with some things that I don't think he should have let him get away with, and. I'll be discussing this in some more detail also on the Atheist Experience tomorrow, because that's our show, and I can say whatever I want, and I can be however rude I want. Mm-hmm. And, because Ashley, because he is a nice guy, and that's a good thing for anyone to be. But sometimes in debating, the gloves have to come off, and that's a tough thing to learn. It took me a while.
You got to be a predator.
And I'm still not as, take him to the mat and, and punch below the belt like Jeff D, right? I still try to, I try to be courteous, but I play hardball when hardball needs to be played.
Yeah. If Jeff had been on that show, it would have been very different.
If you guys have never heard Jeff D argue with somebody,
with a Christian,
that is a sight to behold.
Yeah,
it is.
It's kind of like when Harlan Ellison goes off on one of his big tears and. But
it's an action film.
But then at the same time, I've seen Christians take advantage of that too.
Oh yeah.
When Jeff was host of the TV show, which he was before he did NonProphets, we had a regular weekly caller, Steve the Creationist, right every week. And when Steve the Creationist started out, right, I think he was really interested in trying to discredit evolution and be like, oh, okay, guys, so there, and there was a real back and forth. After a while, though, I think it became apparent to me that he was just calling to amuse himself because he knew that he would get a rise out of Jeff.
Right.
That's the thing. I mean, Jeff can...
And it worked.
And it did. And there have been times when Jeff has blown off the handle and then he's come back and we've talked and said, guys, remember when you were saying I flew off the handle? Well, yeah, I did. But,
anytime where you get a venue where the public can call in, you get trolls.
But I totally understand why Jeff... gets that frustrated and angry, except because when it is so patently obvious what the hosts of this Christian television show were doing today.
Oh yeah.
In terms of just they spun around literally for half the show in this rhetorical cul-de-sac where they didn't really talk much about anything and they were all just laughing and joking back and forth. And it's like, oh look, isn't it cool that the Christians and the atheists are all getting along? And then that was all sort of this setup for the big shifting of the burden of proof at the end, where they turned the focus into, it is up to Ashley to meet the burden of proof for showing that the laws of logic can be defended without an absolute lawgiver, and if he fails to meet that burden of proof, then we win as Christians and God exists.
Right.
That's how they shifted the burden of proof to Ashley. And it frustrated me that he didn't catch that, and in fact, what really frustrated me, in fact, if I could have reached into the TV screen and walked him on the nose, I would have done it. It's like, Ashley, God damn it. Well, did you notice how the term burden of proof didn't come from anyone's lips during the whole show? No one said that phrase on the show, burden of proof. And the one person who should have said it was Ashley. And he should have said it in the first 10 minutes.
Right.
And he should have realized when they kept trying to deflect and sort of well now, when the Bible talks about evidence and blah, 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 it's like, look, guys,
yeah, they rambled about Bible verses, and it's like, who gives a crap what the Bible says?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah, but in George H. Smith, in his book, Atheism, The Case Against God, he talks about how a lot of Christian apologetics, where they go on the offensive against atheism, just end up being completely irrelevant because, they go off on these tangents that skirt the main issue. And, that is kind of what they did today. But we saw it. Ashley didn't see it. And I think that Ashley needs a little bit of boot camp before he takes over the host's share of the TV show to kind of toughen him up a bit. But good for him for giving it a try anyway. So, I guess we've exhausted now that. So.
Okay.
All right. Well,
I had
no, that's out of the way.
Off my chest than I thought.
Talking about people on our side who might be a little too willing to concede things to the other side for their own good. On our last show, we talked about Howard Dean trying to become more of a, religious person candidate.
Religious guy.
No, wait, it's vote for me religion.
Yeah. Which I hasten to add may be a necessary evil if he's actually going to win the election because, but I don't know. I mean, he may be trying to get in touch with people who are never going to vote Democrat in a million years anyway.
Don't forget, Timmy, anybody can grow up to be the president of the United States.
Really?
As long as they're a fundamentalist Christian.
Oh, boy.
Well, unfortunately, though, by trying to become all biblical, he just really embarrassed himself a couple of weeks ago.
Right. Well, because if people perceive that you're just doing it for political gain, although it's dishonest, it'll backfire.
Right. Here's what happened. As he heads into what H.L. Mencken called the Bible Belt, This is from an editorial by William Safire, who I normally don't want to hear from. But anyway, Howard Dean moved to plug an apparent hole in his resume about an interest in religion, and hearing Howard Dean's observation beginning, "If you know much about the Bible," which I do, a reporter asked about his favorite New Testament book. So Dean named Job. What's wrong with this picture, guys?
Job is a Robert A. Heinlein novel? No.
Job is kind of the Old Testament.
Not only is it an Old Testament book, but isn't it that the Old Testament book where God and Satan decide, hey, let's have a bet, right?
Uh-huh.
I bet I can make this guy. Let's fuck with this guy. Let's totally ruin his life. And God's like,
okay, sure.
I bet he won't lose faith in me. Devil's like, I bet he will.
Yeah, so, I bet I could totally jerk this guy around and destroy his life, and he'll still come crawling back to me.
Boy, is that sick on so many levels.
Yeah. This is Dean. I hope this is not, an indication of how Dean plans to run his administration. We've already got the Bush administration doing enough of that shit.
For the American people, they'll still come begging to me.
I bet we can alienate every single last one of our allies. And at the end, they'll still buy Britney Spears CDs.
Well, I think the point here is not that Job is a horrible book, because, a lot of the Bible is horrible, but Dean called it his favorite New Testament book, which really kind of embarrassed himself.
Which is Dean now has his own Bushism to his credit.
And then he said, but I don't like the way it ends. In some of the books of the New Testament, the ending of the book of Job is different. There's one book where there's a more optimistic ending, which we believe was tacked on later.
At least he didn't tack on an E at the end of Job.
Well, he screwed that up too. But
he's off on his own, alternate universe version of the Bible or something.
Yes. Well, the candidate later returned an hour later to confess his error. Job is in the Old Testament, not the New. And beyond that slip, his recollection of one book where there's more optimistic ending is muddled. What actually happens is that the book of Job has an upbeat ending, which is after getting destroyed, basically. He gets twice as many cattle and twice as many kids and twice as many wives or whatever as he had before. So, it's like, well, but see, he trusted God, so it was okay. Actually, apparently scholars believe that maybe, that was kind of thrown in as sort of a Steven Spielberg ending to the Stanley Kubrick version of Job. If you know what I mean.
All right.
It was they focus grouped that book of the Bible back 1,000 years ago, and a lot of the respondents just walked out at the same time. So they said, we have to go back and recut this. And the new ending just went over.
Job ends up at the bottom of an ocean praying to a blue fairy? What kind of an ending is that?
So they had to do all these reshoots, and it was just messed up.
He had the right idea, but, I wish it weren't necessary for candidates to at least pretend that they know the Bible so that they can get elected.
That is, it shouldn't matter. It should be, can you do the damn job? Can you balance a budget? Can you keep the country safe? Are you qualified to do the work?
Yeah, can you actually run the country?
Yeah.
Well, I got a segue from this.
Oh, you go, sir.
Yeah. Is your favorite NT story the one about how you killed the Swedish foreign prime minister, Anna Lindh? From The Guardian,
the book of Swede.
The man who has confessed to killing Swedish foreign minister Anna Lindh said Jesus told him to kill her, police said today. Well, are they going to add conspiracy to the list of crimes committed here then in this case?
Well, if Jesus died for all of our sins, I guess he died for the conspiracy people as well.
Let's see. Leif Jenekvist, the Stockholm police commissioner who led the murder investigation, told reporters that Mr. Majalovic,
I think that's
Milosevic had made up his mind to kill Ms. Lynn during roughly 14 minutes between seeing her enter the Central Stockholm department store, and the murder. He decided to kill her, and he did it. He says he did it at the command of an inner voice belonging to Jesus. Mr. Milosevic told prosecutors, "I think it is Jesus, that he has chosen me," when asked why he killed Mrs. Lind, according to a transcript of the January 6th confession. Ms. Lind, a leading pro-Euro campaigner touted as a future prime minister, was stabbed 10 times in the attack on September 10th last year and had stab wounds on her chest, stomach, and arms. She later died from her injuries.
Wow. And it's Jesus' fault.
Yeah.
It
used to be the devil that made you do it.
He issued the command, we are led to believe. So
he gave the order.
He gave the order, and
now,
that order has as much evidence behind it as anything else that Jesus said.
Now, he could just be saying this in the hopes of, I can cop an insanity plea if I say this. This could be a completely calculating move. He could just be some raving asshole.
But it wouldn't be the first time that someone, killed somebody and said they did it because Jesus told them to.
True. But he could just be like, he could just be, I'm not saying he's not a loon, but this, he could be thinking to himself, I can get, they'll find me insane if I say this, and I'll get like a reduced sentence, or I'll get to stay in some cushy hospital.
Yeah, well,
have to do
you know how it is.
Do they execute the sweet?
Love thine enemies, heal the sick, give to those who ask for it, and kill the Swedish Prime Minister.
Right. Yeah. Well, they say Mr. Milosevic, who was born in Sweden to Serbian parents, goes on trial on Wednesday and faces between 10 years and life in prison if convicted of the murder. But there is another guy involved in this murder, Jesus, and we have no record of him being... I don't think they put out an APP on him or anything.
Jesus made me do it. I just saw her in here in the store.
No.
I didn't hear the voice. I've been here going, do it, kill her.
Yep. This is one of those situations where the court needs to decide, well, does Jesus exist and issue orders to people, or doesn't he?
Yeah. Terrible warrant for Jesus.
Yeah, because if he does, then somebody needs to stop him.
Yeah, that's right.
No. I think it's just a jerk trying to, cop a plea and get himself a life.
Mm-hmm. I can't... To say that, I would have to just arbitrarily contradict what he says about himself. I can't do that. I'm not in a position to do that. So I have to go by what he says.
Okay.
If he says he's a Christian, well, he's a Christian.
Oh,
if he says Jesus spoke to him and told him to kill that person, well, I have to accept that. I have to accept that's what he believes.
There we go. Oh.
Right, you wouldn't want to follow man's laws over God's laws if God tells you to kill somebody.
That's very true. You must
gotta do it.
Higher authority.
That's the only information I have concerning his motives.
Right. Well, I think I'll do one.
Yeah, go for it.
Please.
I'm going to move slightly afield here. Not quite so much, not explicitly political, but in some ways it is. 7th grade social studies teacher in Presque Isle, and I'm not exactly sure where Presque Isle is, but this is from a website, pressherald.com, so I guess that's just a local newspaper from wherever it's from. Oh, it would be Maine, I think, because they mentioned Bangor.
Okay.
All right, this would be Maine. Way up where it's like 9 zillion degrees below zero right now. Anyway, a 7th grade social studies teacher in Presque Isle who said he was barred from teaching about non-Christian civilizations has sued his school district, claiming it violated his First Amendment right of free expression. Gary Cole of Washburn, a teacher at Skyway Middle School, sued School Administrative District 1 in U.S. District Court in Bangor. Cole alleged that complaints by, quote, a small group of fundamentalist Christian individuals... There's always some. That small group.
The woodwork.
Yeah, they just go from place to place around the country, little group.
That small group.
Led to the creation of a curriculum, quote, which never mentions religions other than Christianity and never teaches the history of civilizations other than Christian civilizations. He can't even teach the history of anti-Semitism or the history of ancient Greece, said Cole's lawyer, A.J. Grief. Great name for a lawyer, Grief. A.J. Grief of Bangor. How can you explain the evolution of democracy in the Western world without talking about ancient Greece? He can't talk about all the influences of the Indian, Japanese, or Chinese cultures. That's not pretty insane. I mean, you're basically pretending the rest of the world...
crazy.
You're pretending that 90% of world history didn't happen.
Is he allowed to talk about the Egyptians since it's in the Bible? Wow.
Well, they don't mention that.
Huh.
Well, like, I guess ancient Japanese civilizations would be strictly prohibited.
Right.
That's one of the things they indicate. Superintendent Gary Johnson said on Tuesday he had not seen the lawsuit, but he knows the curriculum has been developed by teachers across the district and adopted by the SAD1 school committee. Quote, unquote. Cole's lawsuit alleges that the curriculum infringes on, quote, his students' First Amendment rights to the free flow of information within the classroom, and that it constitutes an illegal establishment of religion in violation of the First Amendment. Grief said that when Cole has gone outside the prescribed curriculum, he has been reprimanded and given warnings that he could lose his job. He said the district is imposing curricular choices upon the students that are framed by one particular religion in the community. Cole had been teaching a broader curriculum at one point, but during the past several years, members of a church group, quote, had been complaining and attempting to get the curriculum confined to a history of Christian civilization, not the civilization of the Eastern Hemisphere, the lawyer said. Grief said Cole wasn't trying to teach anything unusual or anything that wasn't being taught in most 7th grades across the state. His lawsuit seeks injunctive relief to allow him to teach the history of the entire Eastern Hemisphere as appropriate. Anyway, he goes on to say that, Maine Department of Education says that, the rules really ought to allow, districts flexibility, et cetera, et cetera. But, if true, this is nuts. I mean, this is now, it's gone beyond biology and origins and evolution versus creationism now. Now we have this little group of Christians, apparently, in Maine, who are trying to say, no, we can't teach about ancient Greece, we can't teach about, pre-Christian Europe, or we can't teach about the history of the African nations, or about
the entire Eastern Hemisphere.
Yeah, and as far as those damn slanty-eyed gooks over there in China and Japan and Korea and all them places.
Well, this is what
they might as well not exist. They don't exist. Forget it.
This is what happens if you give Christians an inch.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, we know that they're trying to take over the school curriculum. I mean, look at our school board meeting. At our school board meeting in September.
Yeah, but this is the first that I've heard them try to now influence world history.
Well,
evolution you expect to have.
It's not the first. You remember the Texas Freedom Network talked to us before, and they were showing us that some textbooks, they were set. The Christian groups were trying to get the textbooks altered because, they showed images of women going to work.
Yeah, a woman in a business suit. Yeah.
Yes. Or African American people looking happy or something like that.
A happy, well-structured African American family. Madness, right?
They were against that.
Just a bunch of old bigots.
So, it's not just evolution they're going after. They would like to take over the entire educational system, and if you let them, then they will.
Brainwash everybody.
So that's just crazy. So we'll try to follow this one because it's
that's important.
Yeah, it's with Bush in the White House and with faith-based everything on the agenda. It's like they're just it's emboldening them more and more.
Let's see. So what is Bush doing these days? Well,
being a complete bastard. Sorry, watching Young Ones too much.
No, I mean these days instead of always.
Oh, okay.
On Thursday, as hundreds of protesters shouted objections, President Bush laid a wreath Tuesday at the tomb of Martin Luther King Jr. on a visit to mark what would have been the 75th birthday of the slain civil rights leader. The president bowed his head in respect at the tomb as police worked to block protesters who pushed past barricades. 2 people were arrested. So that's a nice way to celebrate Martin Luther King Day. But why was he there? Bush used himself. Bush in New Orleans had pressed his plan to let religious charities compete for more federal dollars. He said, the miracle of salvation is the key to solving some of society's most intractable problems.
Oh, I thought preemptive war was one of the key ways of solving...
Preemptive war and the miracle of salvation. Those are two...
defense.
Oh, that's it, yeah.
The two keys to solving some of society's most intractable problems. The miracle of salvation and preemptive war.
Among our weapons are... Wait, I'll come in again.
Bush used himself as an example of the good that religion can do, referring to his decision.
Well, he's half right.
Referring to his decision to stop drinking at age 40 because I changed my heart.
He is an example of what religion can do, all right.
Yeah, he stopped drinking at age 40. Well, good for him.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Well, but before 40, you see, he hadn't had religion.
I'm before 40. I haven't had religion, and I don't snort blow, and I don't get drunk, and I...
Hey, what a shock.
Gas.
I don't drink.
So maybe religion doesn't have a damn thing to do with it.
You need Jesus so you can start.
Well, if I thought I had to appease the unknowable wishes of a gigantic being who can throw me into a pit of hell, I might take to drinking.
Well, remember, I've said this before, but I'll just toss it out very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I hear one of these stories about how, Jesus saved me from a life of drinking, drugs, and woe and despair, and sort of like, I've always thought that not only do I not need religion or a belief in God to tell me that it's wrong to be like an alcoholic, coke-snorting wife beater, I don't particularly think I want to know the kinds of people.
Why should I associate with those?
I don't want to know or meet or hang out with the kind of people who need religion or a belief in God to think that...
To keep them from doing it.
to realize that it's wrong to be an alcoholic.
Yeah, you hear all these conversion stories about what awful people they were, and you're like, man, Christianity appeals to some horrible people.
That's right. You can get away with anything.
Yep.
All you have to do is accept Jesus, so you're forgiven what you're doing. Yeah. I mean, you're a sinner by default, so...
That's right.
Okay, so now I suspect...
Why hold back?
I suspect that a lot of these protests during the MLK Day...
why were they protesting?
Well,
because Bush is clearly doing...
it's just a photo op?
Basically, this thing that Bush was doing was to compensate for the fact that, only 9% of all black people would vote for him.
Ah, yes.
Which is, the worst, race record that any Republican president has had.
But there's also just this offensive notion that here's... a president who has just led us on this dubiously justified, to put it politely, war, and he's paying homage to, Martin Luther King, who was all about peace. And love and understanding, right? And it's just the most blatant political hypocrisy that, that he would do this.
Right, but the story mentions that, every time he wants to push one of these faith-based initiatives, he always goes to a black church somewhere because it's a photo op to make it look like he's not just trying to appeal to white conservative, to white fundamentalists. And, the reason he appears in black churches is because the white fundamentalists look at him and say, oh, that guy has good relations with black people. Because obviously it's not working for the actual people in the black churches.
Evidently not if they're storming the barricades and having his...
Yeah, they were outside beating drums, chanting, go home, Bush, and waving signs saying, war is not the answer, and Bush no more in 2004.
That's a good chant.
Yeah.
My attitude, getting back to the faith-based initiatives thing, my attitude is, he said, the government should not fear faith-based programs. We ought to welcome faith-based programs, and we ought to fund faith-based programs, he said, from the pulpit of the Packed Union Bethel AME Church in a crime-plagued neighborhood near this city's downtown. Faith-based programs are only effective because they do practice faith. It's important for our government to understand that.
Yeah, but exactly how effective are they? Is there any data out there to support the notion that faith-based social programs are any better at, getting people away from, getting off the wayward path of life than similar programs that are ecumenical or secular or purely scientific or whatever.
I don't know what, but even if I did see such data, I would be highly skeptical of how they slanted it.
Yeah. Because we already know they cooked the books on that prison thing. And
yeah, the prison thing. And you know, in general, you know, they get to choose who comes in. Mm-hmm. So, you know, people, I mean, as it is now, people who go to these faith-based things, when they're not government-funded, they can just pick anyone off the I mean, you know, only the people who voluntarily come in would get counted in their statistics. So people who voluntarily come in to get help,
right,
you know, they're naturally going to have a better success rate with them than everyone else who, you know, a government program has to help everyone and not discriminate on the basis of other things.
Yeah, that's what I tell people who think psychics are the real deal.
Yeah.
I always tell them, it's like, well, first off, you have to understand something. People who willfully go to a psychic, you know, they're believers anyway, right? Skeptics don't go see psychics for any reason. You know?
Yeah.
And there's one thing that the psychic knows about you the minute you walk in his door, and he can know this about you without being psychic, right? He knows two things, actually. He knows that you believe in his powers.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're there.
Right.
And he knows that then you are going to listen to everything he has to say in a trusting
I'm
manner.
sensing that people call you gullible sometimes.
How did he? God, he saw right through me. Yeah, he did.
Yeah. So I mean, people willingly, you know, take partake in a faith-based program, and they're believers anyway. Sure, you know, I mean,
it's gonna work.
Yes.
And unlike the government programs, the faith-based programs aren't obligated to just take
quite so.
Bum off the street.
The Reverend Barry W. Lynn has a relevant comment. He's the executive director of Americans United for Separation of Church and State, as I'm sure you know. He said Bush is trying to overturn 2 centuries of church-state separation required by the Constitution and institute taxpayer-subsidized job discrimination by allowing taxpayer-funded groups to hire and fire based on their religious beliefs. Uh-huh. So Lynn's perspective is these aren't going to be any different from regular charity work, except that they get to discriminate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For Bush, the issue is aimed at appealing to 2 important constituencies, religious conservatives who make up his base of support, and black voters, only 9% of whom supported him in 2000.
Yes, well, he's probably going to have they don't seem very happy with him and because with this recent trip, so I can't imagine that 9% will get much higher.
Right.
Yeah, they don't seem terribly impressed.
Bush is coming across like anybody see Undercover Brother?
No, I avoided that one.
It's worth renting. Okay. But there's like the token white guy who tries to be black and hip and you know down with and he's played by
Bush.
Yeah, and and the actor who plays him in the movie is great. It's the guy who played I can't remember his real name. He played Doogie Howser.
Oh,
that actor.
Okay.
Yeah, so he plays. Oh
wow.
So it's funny. So Bush is like makes me think of that character.
Yep.
Like. What it is, Holmes.
Bush can't talk fast enough, though, to pull that off.
I just want Bush to do something as mind-numbingly dumb as his dad did. Like, go to a supermarket and marvel over the laser scanner.
Yes. What are you talking about? Bush does dumb things every day.
No, but that was just
choking on a potato chip. Not good enough for you.
No, Bush Senior.
Bush Senior.
When he went to a supermarket one time. Like when he was in office, he never. So he was on one of his. I don't know if he was something or what. But he went into a supermarket to be like, well, I want to be man of the people. I'll go and visit. So he goes in, and for the first time in his life, he sees what. Yeah, you know, he's never seen that before. And he's like, look at how the thing does the thing.
Did you ever wonder what those little bars on all the products were?
And, of course, it was just
it's not.
I mean, Jay Leno
They're the mark of the Antichrist.
3 weeks worth out of, just that alone, right?
Well, do we want a surreal story now? Or?
Yeah, do a surreal story and I'll follow it up with my own. Yeah.
Here's something that sounds like it comes from The Onion, but actually it comes from the fair and balanced Fox News. ACLU comes to Rush Limbaugh's defense.
Whoa!
I wonder how Bill O'Reilly's going to spend that one.
I don't know. West Palm Beach, Florida. talk radio host Rush Limbaugh probably never expected the American Civil Liberties Union to become
No one
staunch
expects the
supporter.
American Civil Liberties Union.
Wait, ACLU, evil, Rush,
Evil,
conservative. Wait, Rush must be liberal. No, wait, does not compute.
But the privacy rights group was on his side Monday, and its Florida branch filed a friend of court motion on behalf of Limbaugh, arguing state officials were wrong in seizing his medical records for their drug probe. Let's applaud the ACLU once again, shall we?
They are better people than I am.
They are better people than Rush Limbaugh is, that's for sure. But we have always said that the ACLU's real client is the Bill of Rights, and we will continue to safeguard the values of equality, fairness, and privacy for everyone, regardless of race, economic status, or political point of view.
Wow. Yeah, it is going to be amazing to see how O'Reilly tries to spin this one, because, of course, every time he identifies the ACLU on his show, every time he mentions it as the most dangerous organization in America.
Yes.
And so,
the most dangerous organization in America defended Rush Limbaugh.
So this will be very, very funny to see how the Fox spinmeisters try to...
The ACLU contends that state law enforcement officers violated Limbaugh's privacy rights by taking possession of his medical records as part of their criminal investigation into the commentator's alleged doctor shopping to feed his prescription drug addiction. So, yeah, the president said in this case will impact the security of medical records and the privacy of the doctor-patient relationship of every person in Florida.
Wow.
So, yeah, they're going for this for completely reasonable reasons. And
I'm sure that all the neocon Fox crowd is just, they're sitting there scratching their heads in utter confusion. They're like, it's sort of like, if you're out with your buddies at night, you just go out to some bar and you're watching a football game, right? And then you turn to the door and you see this, like, amazingly hot chick just walk into the bar all by herself, and she sits down at the bar all by herself, and you all just kind of sit there and saying to yourself, no, this isn't happening. It's a joke. This is the other shoe's about to drop in a minute. I'm going to get up to go over there, introduce myself, and her 6'9" black boyfriend is going to walk in.
Right.
Something, right?
That's going to
waiting for the other shoe to drop. Where's the joke? I mean, so there's like this whole, the ACLU's defending Rush.
Yeah.
What? Wait a minute. The other shoe's about to drop somewhere.
Of course, everybody's aware that investigators seized the records last month after discovering that Limbaugh received more than 2,000 painkillers prescribed by 4 doctors at a pharmacy near
the reason that the ACLU is so often defending liberals and like atheists and other people that they consider evil is that conservatives and fundamentalists are the ones who are most likely to trample all over people's rights. Ever think of that?
Well,
and now that right tromping is starting to spill over into the conservatives, and they're going, oh, wait a minute, not me.
Well, now, in fairness, it can swing both ways, right? I thought that a lot of what went on in the 90s with the whole trend in political correctness did a lot of rights stomping coming from the left. Just in terms of freedom of speech issues, right? It seemed like, political correctness basically was, you can't say anything that offends, could possibly offend.
Is that why Huckleberry Finn got banned? Or when was that? I mean, Huckleberry Finn has the word nigger in it, and I remember
there's been some debate. There's actually been debate on that from both sides, but that's been going on for years.
Right.
But again, it's these things where you can't say anything at all that could possibly defend a black person or Latino or a gay or a lesbian person, and if you do, we have to shut you up and shut you down. But if you're just a white heterosexual guy from the suburbs, well then we can razz on you all we like.
Right.
So that was unfair too, and I saw that as kind of being. That's kind of unfairness coming from the left, but that was like in early 90s. That's 10 years ago. And now, the pendulum...
kind of a nudge, wink, wink kind of.
Societal... I mean, it's a pendulum, right? It swings both ways. We have a liberal generation followed by a more conservative one, and then the pendulum swings back to liberal. Now we're on the conservative swing. So who knows what the 2010s will look like.
I don't know.
But they do make lasting...
Authentic Poppy in the chat room is mentioning that the ACLU has also defended Jerry Falwell, which I don't remember.
I don't know.
Maybe you could remind us of what that case is, Chatter.
Yeah. But, well, he'll hear that in a couple minutes.
Well, You're right, though. That is very close to an Onion article. There's that one Onion article that ACLU defends
Rush Limbaugh.
KKK's right to burn down ACLU headquarters. That's awesome. Well, I've got some surrealism, and then we'll get back to some more serious news. But here's just a little silliness. Okay. Here we go. No, that one. All right. Paris Hilton, everybody's favorite Hummer.
Oh, boy.
Is turning over a new leaf for the new year, apparently. Party princess has reportedly signed up for teachings in LA's trendy Kabbalah Center, where Madonna and Demi Moore are regulars. The heiress was given a red string bracelet, which is supposed to fall off when negativity is purged from her system. Yeah, I wonder if that's... And so in her next sex video, I guess...
Plunk.
If the guy pulls out... No, that's a Mary joke.
Oh, come on.
Okay. The bracelet will fall off.
Let's not go there.
That's a Mary McManamy joke. I'm sorry. She's the only person who's allowed to come up with gross jokes like that. Recent photos don't show the
Damn,
bracelet.
you took the tasteless comment for the week.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well. No, I'm sure you can try to outdo me. I won't stop you. But,
We're still around.
Oh, well. So, anyhow.
So, yeah.
Wait,
Blonde
you didn't
party
read
bimbos.
the end of it.
Recent photos don't show the bracelet, so she must be pure now.
Ah, okay, cool.
Oh,
Yeah. All for joining that church.
that must be it. So she's maybe she's all virginal again, and it's time for another round of wild, alcohol-fueled sex orgies on video for her.
Right.
I think
Are there any religions that make you, not stupid? I mean, they can make you pure, but...
I don't know.
I can't, outuse demons of stupidity. I think there's a Dogbird shirt like that. Okay.
I probably still wouldn't join it because
I don't know, but at least, some sects, give you cool things like, kung fu and stuff. But,
okay. Well, while you're digging,
more on a sex theme, actually.
Oh, you want to do another? Okay, go ahead. Sex theme. Please, sir.
States abstinence-only sex education doesn't work any better, report says.
We should not have hired Paris Hilton as teacher.
But she's pure now. We thought it was okay.
So,
The state's $5 million abstinence-only sex education program isn't working, according to an independent study commissioned by the Minnesota Department of Health. The study found that sexual activity among junior high kids at 3 schools where the program was taught doubled between 2001 and 2002.
Yeah, awesome.
A pattern similar to that exhibited by kids statewide.
Yeah.
And the number who said they would probably have sex during high school nearly doubled as well. So, in fairness, they didn't cause the doubling.
No, but it didn't do anything.
No effect.
Right.
And that is the argument the Bush administration is making.
Quite.
It's only sex education, and kids won't want to fuck each other anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Pipe dream, sir.
The state's 5-year-old abstinence-only initiative has been taught to 45,000 Minnesota kids and is funded by state and federal dollars.
44,000 of whom are now pregnant. No.
Tell it to the hormones.
Well, and wasn't it in Al Franken's book where he says something along the effect that there are these Christian, of course, student outreaches. And
right.
They have their little programs, right?
Oh, yeah.
Little names. Like True Love Waits. Basically where they get, they join these little groups and they all make these pledges to be virgins till they get married, right?
Right.
And I think he cited a figure along the lines of upwards of 60% of those kids.
Right. How old?
Of course. These are high school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because, I'm wondering if they also teach this to 11-year-olds or something. They go in and the 11-year-olds are like, no, I don't want to ever have sex anyway. That's gross.
Yeah. Well, 11, at least...
Look, it works.
I remember starting to, be pretty randy when I was 11. For boys, I think it's different. Girls, it's like, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think...
But
an old trouser mouse starts squirming around about that age.
Yeah, but Christians are always, going on rampant about how teaching real sex education, makes kids more likely to have sex. I mean, they're like, look, we teach these kids to use condoms. They'll think that condom, they'll think that having sex is okay. And then, they're always quick to trump up things about how, condoms have a certain failure rate and it's like playing Russian roulette. Yeah. Well, I got news for you guys. Abstinence has a failure rate too.
Yeah.
And it's enormous.
Yeah. Like when you stop being abstinent. Well, and the kids...
Right. And if you don't learn about condoms and abstinence fails, you don't have the condoms to fall back on to keep you from getting pregnant.
Or if you've had no education in any contraceptive alternatives or just sexual health issues. If you don't know about STDs, if all you've been taught about sex is, okay, don't do it, and we won't go there. Okay, next.
Right. Don't do it.
The kids who have, if you don't have the information, then you're going to get in trouble if you go ahead and decide to have sex, which is hard. It's hard for a teenager to.
Right. I mean, real sex education does teach about AIDS. It teaches all the statistics and stuff about how likely you are to get it, and that lets people make an informed decision instead of just scaring them and saying, never ever have sex because God will be angry with you. Doesn't work.
It is a simple point of fact that, of course, abstaining from sex means that you won't have problems related to sex. But abstinence education doesn't get kids to be abstinent. That's the key.
No.
That's the fallacy.
Carol Wolverton, Assistant Commissioner of Health, said health department officials were not surprised by the results.
Well, yeah.
We take it very seriously, she said, and we recognize that there might be more efficient ways to approach this. But it's too early to say whether the health department will try to find a way to reach sexually active kids with information about contraceptives, she said. The state risks losing the federal funding that pays for most of the program if it changes from abstinence only.
There you go.
It's Bush's fault again.
Bush's assholes sitting on everyone.
Thank you for the visual.
Yeah, I know. I thought
Mr. Artist.
Wear it like a hat. Yeah.
Oh my! Turns out this sounds like our theme music for today's show is apropos.
Sex in the Church by David Bowie.
Okay. Going a bit of, this is back to education now, but this is something that's really disturbing. In another part of the world, that a certain teacher in Maine must pretend doesn't exist. Problems in Nigeria. Nigeria is experiencing an upsurge in, of all things, polio. But you thought that was extinct.
Polio, yeah.
Well, what's happening, right? The World Health Organization is in a panic, right? Because they're trying to get this mass immunization campaign going on because they want to vaccinate like 250,000 children in these third world countries, of which Nigeria is one.
Right. They want to wipe out polio like they did smallpox.
Right. And they're in a bit of a panic because this is a $3 billion campaign, right? And they had a target date of 2000, and they missed that, and they're worried that this could be the last chance to do so. Problem is, right? In Nigeria, we have all of these radical Islamic imams telling their frightened flock that this immunization campaign is this nefarious plot from the West to do population control in Muslim countries, to depopulate Muslim countries, essentially. They're telling them things like these vaccines have, anti-fertility drugs in them and stuff like that. And essentially creating a panic, and people aren't getting they aren't letting their children get immunized, they aren't getting immunized themselves, and it's a big problem. And so what we're seeing in these countries is a disturbing upsurge. You're seeing independent scientific tests carried out in South Africa and Nigeria, of course, have shown no traces of anti-fertility agents in the vaccine. Of course not, because it's all a nonsense story. Right. But it has led to neighboring countries already declared polio-free, don't know why that was so hard to get out, being reinfected with the virus. My mother had polio when she was young. This is like right before the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
And, is lucky to be an ambulatory, normal person today. I mean, she described it to me as a nightmare.
It's really bad.
My grandmother basically had to, was staying up days at a time, constantly, massaging her limbs and giving her the medicine, whatever medicine she could, but mainly exercising her.
Right.
So that,
no atrophy.
Right, exactly. And it was only through just that hard work. And she said your friends of hers were dropping like 9 pins. It was really, really hard. It's horrible. Horrible. And simply inexcusable that, again, good old fundamentalist religion can rear its ugly head and say, no, science bad. Just, it's all an evil plot.
Same thing all over the world.
Yeah. Over to you.
Yeah, but this is just murdering people. I mean, no good reason.
Well, it's about keeping control over people, keep them in fear so that they will find escape from that fear in thinking that they have a magic friend.
Mm-hmm. Right, so.
Do you have anything left, Dennis?
Well, I got one thing. Not quite as depressing as that.
Thank goodness for that.
That previous story there, but let's see. This is from the Register in the UK. Flight sim inquiry raises terror alert. Apparently in Las Vegas, I guess. A mother's inquiry about buying Microsoft Flight Simulator for her 10-year-old son prompted a nighttime visit to her home from a state trooper.
Uh-oh.
Julie Oliersek, a USAF reserve pilot, made the inquiry at a Staples store in Massachusetts, home to an earlier bout of hysteria during the Salem witch trials. Yeah, kind of earlier. Yeah, earlier in a couple of centuries earlier. So alarmed was the Staples clerk at the prospect of the 10-year-old learning to fly that he informed the police. The Greenfield Recorder reports. The authorities moved into action, leaving nothing to chance. A few days later, Oliersek was alarmed to discover a state trooper flashing a torch into her home through a sliding glass door at 8:30 p.m. on a rainy night.
Oh.
I might mention that torch means flashlight over there in the UK.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, this came from The Guardian, didn't it?
That's right. Oliersek is a regular Staples customer and schools her son at home. The Staples manager simply explained that staff were obeying advice.
From an idiot.
From an idiot, apparently. Before Christmas, the FBI issued a terror alert to beware of drivers with maps or reference books.
Wait, drivers with maps?
And reference books?
Be aware for drivers with maps?
Yes.
That's everybody on the highway in America.
That's everybody on the highway in America.
Yeah, that's like 98% of drivers.
Well, that's good advice.
If they're going to get arrested for getting flight simulators, they should also get arrested for,
buying maps.
Playing Project Gotham Racing or something. Because, they're simulating driving. They must be learning how to drive so they can drive into buildings.
And driving is just a way to get a map.
Or an almanac.
You can't have them getting maps or reference books.
This is just this is stupidity taken to new levels.
Beyond belief. Reference books. It's like, we must take all reference books away from students because at one time it was rare to find U.S. citizens in the safest and most prosperous country in the world jumping at their own shadows. Now we only note how high. Now that's a rather peculiar editorial at the end of the story, but it works.
Now, the level of paranoia in this country is just getting mind-numbingly stupid.
Yeah.
At a certain point. My parents have...
Well, it's fair and balanced paranoia.
Fairly imbalanced. My parents have a dear friend, love her to death, 11 years old, Barbara. I call her my Aunt Barbara.
Uh-huh.
And she's from Georgia. I mean, I live across the street from my parents in their hometown, right? And she's a hoot, just hilarious. You take every single actress that was in one of these, southern movies, like, Steel Magnolias.
Right, that's her.
Put them all together, and they still couldn't quite be as flamboyant as she is, just her southern hilariousness, right? Okay, well, she's like 70-something, right? Has had both hips replaced. hip replacement surgery on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And she's right. Her last name's Hooker, Barbara Hooker. And she said, I'm
oh boy.
And she said, I'm the town's only hooker, and I ain't even got all my pots. That's her line. So
great.
So she's great, right? But she was in an airport, right? Going flying to the holidays, right? And she's had both hips, so she walks through the deal. And the thing goes off like,
Right. Sirens.
And they start trying to give her a hard time, and boy, I wish I were there, because according to eyewitness reports, she tore this poor kid, in the cap and the little badge about, 6 new rectums and, so I'm 72 years old. I've had both hips replaced. I got a pacemaker. You so goddamn ignorant. You think I'm an Arab terrorist? And blah, blah, blah. Just went on. And everyone's standing there in awe. And her husband, my dad said that they finally let him go. Just to shut her up. And he said the security supervisor was actually kind of standing there like cracking up, sort of under his breath. And he said, I don't want to be here when the real robots start showing up. But
terrorists take note. Be a 72-year-old lady and make a big scene, and
maybe that's the way to get a go. Now they'll arrest me for giving out that hint. But it's just
I'm carrying an Uzi with armor-piercing projectiles.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Just an indication of how amazingly stupid this whole country has gotten, and just in terms of the levels of. I mean, and now they were taking away Granny Lady's nail clippers at first, and now, if a kid buys a damn video game,
that's right.
Suddenly it's like their cops are shining flashlights through the windows. I mean, what is happening to this country? Russell.
I don't know.
But Russell is happening to this country.
I thought that was a nice kind of passing.
It is. It's good.
See, if this were real newscaster,
he would have had something ready.
Yeah, he would have had something ready for
Yes, I would have, but this is merely a simulated newscast.
Oh, I see.
Well, it's coming his way.
Therefore dangerous.
Okay.
And I better make this story last at least 9 minutes.
Okay, I have 11 after.
Okay. Bush's push for marriage falls short for conservatives. We just can't get enough Bush today. Some major conservative...
He's the premier fundamentalist.
Some major conservative Christian groups said yesterday that they were pleased but not satisfied by a new White House initiative to promote marriage, and they stepped up pressure on President Bush to champion a constitutional amendment prohibiting same-sex marriage in his State of the Union speech next week.
They won't be satisfied by anything other than...
Generally speaking, I don't think constitutional amendments that prohibit things have been a resounding success. I mean, the majority of amendments have been involved with protecting people's rights to do things, whereas, the one I can think of that says that no citizen may do this got overturned a few years later.
And what was the prohibition?
Yes.
That was
That's the one.
And we see how well that worked.
Yeah. If you were
set up all sorts of criminal activity.
Yeah, nobody drank any more alcohol.
It was a resounding success.
It was great.
If you were the Gambinis or, the Chicago mob.
Marvelous.
You loved Prohibition.
Yeah. It set up criminal organizations that exist to this day.
Thanks, Baptist temperance ladies groups, for creating the mafia in America.
Idiots.
This is like lobbing a snowball at a forest fire, said Sandy Rios, president of Concerned Women of America, one of the largest conservative Christian advocacy groups. This administration is dancing dangerously around the issue of homosexual marriage. So what are Concerned Women of America so concerned about? That there won't be any eligible men?
Well, as I understand it...
I don't know what their objection is.
I've heard something to the effect that the majority of the board of directors of Concerned Women for America are men. I thought
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's actually, there are more men running that organization than...
I tell you, though, I have yet to hear a convincing argument why gay marriage should be prohibited, except, well, then people would be gay.
It would be icky.
Well, no, see, there's gay people already, and they want to, do the, marriage thing because they love each other, too. And
when a man and a man love each other very much, you see.
Well, here's something interesting was brought up last week about... always get back to blonde bimbos. Sorry, just me. Britney's little 2-day marriage in Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
And more than one commentator in the media, remarked upon how ironic it is. Okay, that here we have this country where it's perfectly, legal for, bimbo pop starlets to make a mockery of the institution of marriage by getting wasted in Vegas and hanging out with some guy and saying, "Oh, hey, Ivan, what great idea! Let's go get married." Right? That's fine. We can
and then getting divorced. What was it? 55 hours later.
But if a committed gay or lesbian couple decide they want to tie the knot and share a life together, somehow that threatens the whole institution of marriage.
Right. That's evil somehow.
Yeah. But Brittany can go off and
it's a forest fire
in a state of extreme wastedness, do her thing and say, and come up with this annulment where her lawyer says something like, "My client did not have any comprehension of her actions." It's like, oh, fine, but we want to make it legal for her to get married, and
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's fine because as long as.
I have to read Wicked Pilot's summary of the show today.
Go for it.
So let's get this all into accounting. Bush wants to fund a war, put a man on Mars, give money to black churches, and now pay for people to get divorced. Small government, here we come.
Yeah.
A terrific magazine called The Economist. I've actually become something of a fan of it because I've been buying it for my dad because he can't get it where he lives. So I buy it.
English news magazine.
Yeah. And there's an article in there that I'm like, it's next on my list to read, but where they talk about big government conservatism under Bush and how it isn't working. So I'm quite eager to read that. But
let's see, what else? Yeah. What else are the Concerned Women for America saying? The conservative Christians' insistence on an amendment to prohibit same-sex marriage may put President Bush in a political bind as he starts his re-election campaign, caught between wooing potential swing voters and turning out his core evangelical supporters. Some conservative strategists warn that pushing to amend the Constitution to prohibit same-sex unions could turn off some potential Republican voters, like suburban women who might find excessive talk about the perils of same-sex marriage as intolerant, mean-spirited, or weirdly obsessive.
That last one is good.
I have
an accurate depiction.
Yeah. I have to say on a personal note that hearing Bush talk hearing Bush being pressured to do this stuff cheers me up. Because he won by a very narrow margin in 2000, right? Mm-hmm. But part of the reason why he won was because he was campaigning as this centrist, middle-of-the-road, all-around nice guy. Mm-hmm. And people bought it.
We didn't quite know how stupid he was.
Yeah, but regardless of that, he was like, I'm not, an extremist, fundamentalist, wacko, gay marriage prohibiting, church funding asshole.
I just play one on TV.
But now we know that you are.
Well,
so, people keep saying that this or that Democrat can't possibly win in 2000. I'm not sure.
We just need a few more really great cataclysmic cock-ups from the
administration. Only hope a wave of common sense sweeps the country.
Yes. On the other hand, as somebody in the chat room said earlier, if he gets reelected and then doesn't have another reelection to worry about, think of what he'll do then.
We're trying not to.
Zoinks.
Okay.
That's a downer note.
Follow up with our pal Mike.
We got
now.
3
minutes. 3 minutes? Okay.
No,
that's right.
3.5.
3.5. Just quickly, a date has been set for oral arguments in one of the nation's most highly watched legal cases. Michael Newdow's Pledge of Allegiance to, of course, March 24th.
Mark your calendars, people.
Attorneys for the Oak Grove School District will square off with Sacramento atheist Dr. Michael Newdow in front of the Supreme Court.
Hopefully Jeff D. will have an amicus briefing.
Yeah. If you haven't listened to the last episode of NonProphets from 2 Saturdays ago, download it from the atheistcommunity.org website, -community.org, blah, 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 because he talks about all those amicus briefs
Right.
These were the amicus briefs that
The theist sent.
the pro-theocracy people
Insane.
have filed, and very interesting there. So March 24th, mark your dates on your PDAs or whatever you use.
Well,
all right.
What else have we, Mr.
Let's see. Well, Jeff D will be back in 2 weeks, we presume.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually back now, as far as I know, but he didn't want to rush over to the show.
Oh, really?
So
looks like we've had a hell of a lot of chatters today.
We have. It's been a very busy. I counted 25 people in the chat room. Haven't had time to check how many people were listening.
Well, thanks for listening. If you were listening, and if you were just chatting,
don't say goodbye yet. We still got 2 minutes.
Well, okay.
Or we could just knock off early and go get some beer.
I'm done. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Let's see, there was something terribly interesting.
Bush is talking about going into space. So
yes, going into space.
Big space program. My opinion on that is, darn it, I don't care why he's doing it, just as long as we have a space race.
Yeah, sure.
I think he just wants Halliburton to have all the non-bid contracts for the moon base.
That must be it. Or they found weapons of mass destruction for the Mars rover, and they have to go there and find them.
Yeah.
One other thing about the condom subject that I just remembered. I was in a message group this week when somebody mentioned, when some hysterical person wrote, condoms have only an 80% success rate, which was not true to begin with.
Yeah.
But then they said, so that's like every time you play you use a condom, you've got a 20% chance of getting a virus. Imagine getting on a plane and knowing there was only a 20% chance that you would reach their destination. And I said...
Wait, that's backwards.
So there's a 100% chance that you'll die if you have sex without a condom? Right. Ever heard of multiplying statistics, lady?
Boy. Wow. That's crazy.
What's left? Are we done?
I guess we are. You're the man who...
What was that about Mel Gibson?
I was just going to say, his movie opens on 2,000 screens, which is very high.
Oh, I thought it was open already.
No, it opens Ash Wednesday.
Okay.
I think it's going to have a record February opening.
You do, huh?
There's enough controversy. Controversy certainly didn't hurt Last Temptation.
That's true. I mean, I'm considering seeing it.
The trailers look gorgeous. If nothing else, it'll be a well done, dramatically done film.
Yeah.
And...
make
him lots of money. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks for inviting me today.
And we'll see you next time. Bye.
The idea of compassion is said to be the human crime.
And since I didn't mention it, this is Sex in the Church by David Bowie, once again.